Hey guys, it's JG here with Earth 5D University, back for another teaching where you are the light, the path, and the way forward, friends. It all happens inside of you. You are the power you are looking for. Thank you for joining me to talk about the path to the 5D. I think you're going to be surprised where I take this. Make sure you stay to the very end of this video. Let's get right into it. How do you enter the fifth dimension, right? When we're looking at the 5D, I would argue that it has less to do about what kind of spiritual gifts you have, what kind of downloads you're getting, who you could channel, who you're channeling, and the certifications that you could get to be like a Reiki master or trained on this, trained on that technique. I would say that entering the fifth dimension has so much less to do with that and so much more to do with a shift in perspective. A shift in perspective can come anyway. I think that folks are getting hung up on this sort of posturing thing, like I speak this Lyran light language, or I'm a Palladian starseed, or I am from, Andromeda, or I'm an X, Y, and Z from Arcturus. All of that is cool, right guys? It's all cool to become more conscious of who you are and where you're from. But I would argue that even with all of that understanding, that where the rubber truly meets the road and bringing 5D to our planet is right in the third dimension. It's right in the everyday experiences that we all are connected to. Everything happens as you're shifting your perspective. And so let's explore that. Let's suss out that topic even more deeply. Sometimes understanding what something isn't helps us lead to finding out what it actually is. Okay, I've been talking about the 5D since about 2018 on YouTube. From my experience, people have come before us, right, to help us lay groundwork for what we're experiencing now. There's no doubt. And I would argue that the fifth dimension starts happening through experiences in your everyday life. So it's not happening like up on a spaceship. And it could happen at a workshop, right guys? But what I'm really leading us to here in this discussion is that literally the 5D happens in everyday, in and through everyday life. It's less about gathering these experiences that are running parallel to everyday life. Life is made up of everyday experiences, right? It's you and me relating. And I would argue that this is where 5D happens, between you and me, in our unity, in my heart being open to your heart, in me listening actively to you, in you listening actively to the people in your life. It's believing and understanding that everything belongs. Even the things that we don't like, they still belong here, or it wouldn't be happening to you. So when we reject and we try to create side experiences, I feel like we're getting off, like we're missing the point. It's difficult to go through life like, here's my life, and then I have all these side experiences. What about your actual life, right? So what would it be like to integrate a 5D perspective in your everyday life? And that's what I'm getting at, is that it's less about having these side experiences. And believe me, I know that those side experiences, those countercultural things that you're learning that are against the grain, right? They're not in the mainstream. I know that there's value in learning them. I am not knocking that. But it's taking what you've learned and then integrating it into the everyday, into going to the grocery store, into driving down the street, into going to your 9-to-5 job. We do not need to necessarily rebuild all these systems. We need to take what we learn and bring it into the everyday. So I would say that living a fifth dimensional life is bringing a 5D perspective into the third dimension. And I think that's more along the lines of what it is, rather than learning all these side parallel things that you just kind of keep in those side parallel things. Like, yeah, I have my family and I have my children, I have my husband that we're sitting over there, but they don't really get the 5D. It's like, whoa, friends, they are your life, right? Like our family, our connections, the energy that we live predominantly, that's our life. So we need to bring a higher perspective into our everyday. That's why I'm not sitting here like, yes, there's light language. Yes, I speak light language. Yes, I can do healings. Yes, I do healings. But what is actually going on here is, how do I communicate to people in a loving way just in my native language, like English, right? How do I communicate with people lovingly? Am I a straight shooter with people in the regular? That is 5D, right? And let me give you an example. So I'll give some examples. One example that I can give you, there's alternative medicine, right, guys? There's like Western medicine and there's Eastern medicine, and then it seems to be like everything spiritual and then everything not spiritual, right? But there's so many shades in between that. And I'm saying that when you create fifth dimensional experiences, they tend to blend into systems. For instance, my mom, who's in her 70s, she was a Reiki master, 20 years ago, really very, very countercultural in that sense, really very progressive. And nowadays, she also sees a Western medical doctor, right? There's things that she's had to go to Western medicine for. She recently saw a younger doctor. He changed her life. I was on the phone with her. I could tell she had had a profound experience. Her energy felt lighter to me. She was just happier. And I was like, what's going on, Mom? And she just explained that she met this beautiful guy who was a young medical doctor. She had to go see someone for do some blood work and get that analyzed. And basically he spent an hour with her. And what she noticed, because she's quite conscious, she's been on this journey for a while herself, is that she realized that his divine feminine was really healed. And so he was super compassionate. He was a great listener, and he was able to bring to her a healed feminine energy that that felt deeply healing to her. And outside of the service he was giving to her as an MD, listening to her, like I said, he spent an hour with her. He also sort of gave her this understanding of a more divine masculine who is more in tune with his feminine side. They were talking about how his younger daughters and going through puberty was so difficult for them, and my mom having quite a few grandchildren through me and my siblings, how she can see them struggling too, especially the female ones with puberty and trying to understand themselves. And it was like his holistic point of view, even as a medical doctor, that she found extremely healing and is exactly what she needed. That was a 5D experience in the third dimension. We are not meant necessarily to have to change every system in place. We can take the systems already in place, and with our perspective, we can change them. We can change them with our perspective. We can integrate the consciousness that we bring, which is love, expansion, and freedom, into the systems that already exist in the boardroom, in executive meetings, at the DMV, right? At dealing with your taxes, right? Dealing with the systems that are already in place. We can change those by bringing a sense of balance to them, a sense of harmony to them, and it will change the system. And so we don't necessarily have to reject everything. We can integrate our higher awareness into the things and systems that already exist, into the relationships that already exist. Let's say you have a whole life built, okay? And then you're only doing like 5D stuff on the side. Like you're doing your readings, you're going to your groups, but that's only on the side, and there's very little integration into your everyday life. That is problematic. It'll catch up with you. Let me give you an example. Some of you know that when I was in my late teens, I had a spiritual awakening, and it was shifting consciousness. I could say I had third eye awakening. It almost felt like a conversion experience at the time because the Christ consciousness came over me. And at the time I was not religious. I was not raised with religion. I didn't have anything imposed upon me. I did have to go to Hebrew school for a little, but I found it awesome and fascinating. I never had any kind of crazy restriction on spirituality. I used to say that I had Jennyism. And so when people ask me my religion, I said, it's Jennyism. And I had my own points of view on this. But when I had this third eye awakening and this consciousness happened to me, this shifting consciousness happened like this, literally overnight, not even overnight, in a second, it happened to me. And I started like hanging out, looking for support, and that being in the 90s, I was looking for support and I was like, really coming up blank, not finding people like me. And so I ended up in this like fundamental Christian group where they were like, believed in laying on hands. They were Catholics, right? But they were like fundamentalist Catholics. So they spoke in tongues, which I now understand that to be light language, right? They were laying on hands, but they all were in this very tight-knit group. And their spirituality only stayed in there. And it was like they were these people in this situation, but they only hung out with each other. And I was like, how is that integrated, guys, into the everyday life? And I ended up feeling so restrained, so restricted, that fundamentalist group taught me just a huge lesson that I couldn't stay tucked in this side little niche group of people praying in tongues. And I had to like go out and live. I loved mainstream music, not just Christian music. Like I love dancing. I love going out. I love sports. I love playing sports. I love countries. I love learning different languages. I love history. I love I love life. And so I realized that living life fully is a much more integrated place, a much more balanced place, and now as I'm, fast forward, right? It's now 2024, and I'm seeing still that these side fragmented sort of spiritual pockets are amazing, maybe to get refreshed and to learn and take program, to take coursework. I'm not saying they're bad, but I am saying keeping them on the side, only a fragment of what's necessary right now. We must take what we learn and take our higher perspective, our 5D perspective, and live it on the daily. We need to be able to not be afraid of Western medicine and not be afraid of, my son is an example of like, since he was a baby, he's 21 now, but ever since he was a baby, I always tried a homeopathic solution. It just didn't work for him. He was responsive to Western medicine. It's just, and I tried, like, I remember buying cloves and putting clove oil on his teeth and going to Whole Foods, 20 years ago, and buying that kind of stuff, and it just didn't work. And I've been doing energy work for many, many years. And 20 years ago, I remember exchanging, bartering energy gifts with others and getting energy work done upon him. I'm sure they worked, right? But when he was really sick, he needed Western medicine. And so I responded to him with what he needed. Does that mean it's bad? No. Does that mean all people are bad, mainstream? No. Things are changing here in where the 5 and the 3D match. Now, the 4th dimension, there's debate on what that is, right? So I'm not going to get into that debate. I am saying though that what you want to when you want to manifest, when you want to create a life that's 5th dimensional, you do that in the everyday, because you can't just have a whole everyday and then these just side experiences, right? That's only just like living half a life, and you deserve to live a full life. Are there systems in place that we can sort of reboot and bring 5D energy to? Absolutely. Will we also create new systems? Sure. But we don't want to be afraid, right? We don't want to be afraid of the 3D, and we don't want to just live on the outskirts and the fringes. We can bring all of it together and integrate it in the mainstream. And suddenly, after some time, the mainstream becomes 5D, because, friends, and this is the key thing to take away here, is that as we change, systems change. We are the change. And so when enough people change internally, when enough people meet right here in love, in a loving exchange, in a heart-to-heart exchange, even if it's like a disagreement, even if it's a disagreement, when we meet with an open heart and an open mind, that changes things. And that's how the 5D becomes part of the everyday, because it's internal. So as all of us shift into a broader perspective, no matter what light language you speak, no matter how many spiritual gifts you have, talents you have, it's this perspective that's what changes everything. So I would say that your doorway to the 5D is a perspective of greater love, greater awareness of what that is, of joy, of freedom, of acceptance. I'm not saying that you have to accept things in life that hurt you and hurt other people. I am saying that as your perspective broadens and you bring it, that loving perspective, to everyday things that even seem harmful, those systems will shift. Okay? Those will shift. So don't be afraid to take your 5D into the 3D. That's where I believe the doorway is. That's where I believe the path is for you, friends. That's how I've seen it. That's how I've experienced it. When I deal with my parents that are getting older, when I deal with X, Y, and Z, when I deal with life, bring your love, bring your kindness, bring your integrity to it, and your life will change. And so will the life of others. All right, friends, that's my message for you today. I hope it has assisted you. It's a little longer. I hope that you realize that you are the change that you seek, that it is your perspective that changes systems, and that you are the power. I'm so happy you've been here with me. Thank you so much for sharing this message. If you need help with your own spiritual guidance, your own coaching, feel free to look me up, to hit me up. I have a whole nother channel of readings. I'm here for you guys, and I offer you so much love and light. Take care.